I think this is the first time you've seen me on camera. This is me, Mark's Faceting shed. Well, I'm not the shed, I'm Mark. The shed is all around us. It's a garage basically joined on to a bit of a lean-to. Anyway, I haven't made a video for some time. Had lots of other things to do. A couple of you have commented that you'd like to see another video and would like to have a look at how I dop a stone. So, as you can see, it's clear sapphire. Now, they're only about £8 or £9 for the lot, so it makes you a bit suspicious. What's wrong with it, eh? Who knows? But we'll have a go. We'll choose the best piece. We'll preform it, and what we'll then do is cut around brilliant, because I've never cut clear sapphire before, and it's supposed to look like diamond. I'm not sure, we'll find out. I think that's about the best piece to start with. Doesn't seem to have any stress fractures, but time will tell. So what I'm going to do is put it on my trusty machine, preform it, and then I'll come back to you and we'll start making a rain brilliant. So you all know, buyer beware. There was a reason it was cheap. Let me see if I can show you. I'm just going to bring the camera down. Sorry about the motion. Got it. Okay. These pieces. Hang on, let me just put the light on. Professional here. These pieces will make decent gems. They're fracture free from what I can see at the moment. That one's got a bit of a pink hue about it. So that was the decent stuff, but I don't know how much of this you can see, but as soon as that touched the saw blade, fracture, 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 and these pieces are pretty much all the same. They've got little fractures going through them. So it was a reason it was cheap. It was obviously a batch of man-made clear sapphire that when they bought out of the oven or whatever the process is, and split them, because balls are made in a sort of round shape with a seed going down the middle, and you have to crack them to release the tension. Well, there was obviously an awful lot of tension in this particular batch, so we can't get too many decent pieces out of it. But nevertheless, £6–7, 6 decent pieces. That's a good buy still. So you just got to be careful. But there's a reason why things are cheap sometimes. So what I'm going to do now is get this lot and pre-shape one to sort of a round brilliant, size it up, and let's make it. So preform, glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. Power on, spin it up. So we know this is brittle, hard, but brittle. So we don't know what's going to happen here, but let's preform and see. What I'm going for is just a rough round shape, just knock the edges off. Using a 100 disc maybe, 100. Flatten the base off a bit now. And we're getting that as flat as possible so we can put a nice dot on it. I can already, can I, or am I imagining it? See a small fracture there, but let's roll with it a minute. Right, that'll do for me. Roundish. Got a nasty fracture in there. Again, you see this was this little, don't know if you can see that. Just on that edge there. I think we need to try cut through that to see if we can get anything out of it. So I'm just going to carry on a minute. Okay, I think we're through it. So we know roughly the size of our stone, that's a decent size. So what I'm going to do now is dop it for the people who want to know how I dop things. This time I'm going to use epoxy, and I'll show you the way I do it, which is quite straightforward. Back to you in a second. So stage one is have everything clean. Sorry about the green fingers, that's the wax that's come off beforehand when I was using wax. Wax is what an awful lot of people use, but can sometimes fly off. You've got to be very skilled at applying wax. On this lovely pink towel my wife gave me, I'm using acetone. Stings like hell if you've got any cuts in your fingers, but it gets rid of all the grease that you might have on the stone. So nice clean surface before you use epoxy. You've got a nice flat area. Okay, so everything is ready. Figure out where you want the centre to be. Okay, I've just put a dot on it. It doesn't have to be the exact centre because this is just the rough part. The best thing I find is to just use a little bit of epoxy initially. This stuff has sent me to the hospital twice when I've got it in my eye. I was making remote controlled airplanes. There we go. So be careful with it. Don't use the extremely thin stuff, because the thick stuff like this gives you an opportunity to just move it around for a second or two and then hold it like that whilst that dries. That'll then hold that perfectly still, and we can then put some epoxy around it. So this is stage one of dopping. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate because the stone isn't accurate yet. When you get to stage two, when you've got to transfer it once you've cut, I'm starting with the pavilion. Once you've cut the pavilion, you've got a perfect, hopefully perfect shape below, perfect cut. So you want to make sure that it's transferred properly. That's where it gets more accurate. This is just getting it ready. Okay, so I got all this gear from Sterling. Well, it's a company that produces all of this, and they come from Sri Lanka. Brilliant organisation. Okay, so that I'm going to stay there. It's going to stay there, and we'll let it harden off a minute. Okay, I live in the UK, and my shed out here is very cold. It's beginning to warm up. Spring's about to be sprung, but I keep the epoxy, 2-part epoxy, 5-minute in the house because it goes off a lot better if it's warmish. Whereas out here it's not. When I mean goes off, I mean it's easier to use. So that's all you need for the initial setup. Little notepad, toothpick, bit of a mix. Tend to lay it on just on the top and let it flow down. But it's not as easy as that because it's runny for 4 or 5 minutes. So once you've got the epoxy on there, and it's just a case of moving it around whilst it sets. So I'll be doing this for 4 or 5 minutes. Oh, I can still see a crack in there. Never mind, we'll work through it. I'll still be doing this for 4 or 5 minutes, and once it's set I'll leave it overnight. Don't get too impatient with it. Right, well, this is like watching epoxy dry, so you don't want to watch that for 5 minutes. I'll see you tomorrow once it's ready to shape into a perfect circle with a perfect culet at the bottom, perfect pointy bit, and then we can start putting some facets in. That is, of course, assuming I can get through this slight crack I can see there, right on that edge. I think it might be a small stone, but never give up. Right, that's it. Good night, folks. Still got a little bit of a crack right at the top there, so I'm hoping that when we do the crown that will disappear, because I don't want to make the stone too much smaller. Anyway, let's put the first angle in, 42.5. Okay, the end result of preforming and then putting it on the handpiece and preforming up to a 500 is that you can look at this thing, see if there are any more flaws there, a little bit. Right. We are now ready to start putting facets in on the pavilion. Not a lot of talking in this one because this is about dopping and accuracy, but obviously I'll just keep the film rolling so you can see the process. Anyway, welcome. So first of all, the facets in on the pavilion. Can't see a lot, I'm guessing, because it's probably a little bit milky. What we'll do now is we'll do the girdle in exactly the same spot that the facets join it. Just try find the depth now. pavilion facets, girdle facets. So we'll now put the second lot of pavilion facets on at 41 degrees. Time for polishing. I don't know if you can see through there, but I've done the first set of facets, and the Sterling high speed polishing lap, one swipe down, job's done. And that's from a 500 diamond disc straight to the polishing lap with 5,000 on it. Fantastic. Okay, it's about 15 minutes on. There's one more of these facets to put in here. Don't know how I missed that. Polish up anyway. But it just goes to show with the right disc, that's literally one swipe across. Done. Beautiful. So we're ready for dopping, which is what this whole video is about. So I'll do that tomorrow morning, and we'll transfer this stone around, attach a dopping stick there, remove this and start faceting the crown. And I'm quite pleased with how that's going. It seems it's a quick experiment and a quick video. The main star of this is that Sterling high-speed lap, high-speed polishing lap. Seriously, a couple of swipes, job done. I mean, this isn't going to win any prizes because I'm just going but do you know what? Somebody would like that. Good night, everybody. Okay, day 2, day 3, I don't know. So what we've got to do now is clean this off. Because of polishing, it's covered in oil, WD-40, whatever you're using to help polish the stone. So we need to get that cleaned off, otherwise epoxy, which is what we're going to use, just won't stick properly. So I find the best thing is acetone, just on a bit of a rag. And that will definitely get rid of any grease or oil that's on the stone. Do. Put it on a clean piece of paper, and let's get our dopping jig. Dopping jig, very straightforward. God, it's cold in here today, so this is going to be a bit stiff. Now we can see by the shape of the stone that we need something that will accept the Q-lid, the pointy bit. And this is what we'll use, and then that will self-center in effect. Of course, we don't know how clean this is, so let's clean this off as well. And insert here. And the way this is designed, it basically self-centers. We'll put the stone in as well, doing our best not to actually touch the stone. And as we tighten these, they self-center. So as you can see, that then meets up, and because of the way this is designed, it's perfectly aligned. So next phase is to mix up an epoxy. It's very cold here, so this is going to be a right pig of a job. I should have warmed up the epoxy first. We're going on a bit of a trip this morning. I'm going to go to Glastonbury, pick up some more stones, some more rough if we can find any. But it's going to be a nice day, even though it's only about 2 or 3 degrees outside. It's going to warm up. Get little pads, they're brilliant for mixing epoxy on. Once I've got some epoxy attached to the dop and the stone, I'll take it inside in the warm, it'll go off a bit quicker. Of course, it's sticky. The person who invented epoxy is glad about that. So literally just in the cup. That's it. And what I tend to do is just attach it to the top of the dop and then let it sink down. It tends to form a nice shape. Now this is 5-minute epoxy, but forget the 5 minutes. We're going to let it set for several hours, and as you can see, as it sinks down there, it forms a perfect shape for grabbing onto the stone. Oh, you can't see that, can you? So the next time you'll see me, we will separate the base part using heat and then start cutting the crown. Simple as that. See you later. What's that beeping noise?
Well, it's this freezer, but I don't know if it's... Oh.
Right, that's Mrs. Harris chatting in the background. We'll just ignore her a minute whilst we do this. It's alright, you can say something though, you know.
Oh.
Ah, now I've offended her.
Do you? I've got to clean this whole freezer out now, look.
So, we've now got both parts connected. Both parts connected, and we need to separate them. So what I do first of all is dampen a rag, because we're going to use heat to soften the epoxy, and I'm going to wrap the damp rag around the part of the gem that I want to protect. Don't want it to get too hot. And I'm gently grabbing, as you can see, with a pair of pliers. And without setting myself on fire, we're just going to warm this half whilst hopefully keeping the other half cool. Where things can go wrong, obviously. Hopefully as you can see, that's still perfectly intact, still perfectly cool. I can touch it because of the rag, and we are now ready to go and cut the crown, which we'll do after the Sunday roast. Simple. Let's get this off. Lighter. So this is also where it can go horribly wrong at the last minute. A couple of times I've had gems shatter. So what I'm doing here is getting the gel off by gently warming and heating the epoxy, and of course when you put a hot knife through it, it goes soft.